Imagine a time when the world looked completely different. A time when Europe was lost in the shadows of the Dark Ages. Disease, war, and ignorance ruled the land. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, cities sparkled with golden light. Libraries, overflowed with books, and science, art, and culture were exploding in every direction. That world was the Islamic world. We're talking about more than 1,000 years of innovation, conquest, and cultural brilliance that most people don't know much about. But why? Why is something so important so often left out? The Islamic world wasn't just a place, it was a force. And today, we're diving deep into 1,000 years of its rise, power, and lasting legacy. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might completely change how you see history. Before we get into this, here's what you need to understand. Most of what we call the modern world, algebra, hospitals, chemistry, astronomy, even coffee, has roots in the Islamic world. But this didn't just happen overnight. It took centuries of expansion, deep belief, intense battles, cultural exchange, and yes, some serious political drama. What we'll uncover isn't just a timeline. It's a story about how religion, knowledge, war, and empire built something that still echoes today. Let's rewind the clock back to the 7th century. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE, the Islamic community quickly expanded beyond the Arabian Peninsula. The Rashidun caliphs, the rightly guided ones, began a campaign of rapid conquest. In less than a century, the Islamic Caliphate had spread from Spain in the west to the borders of India in the east. That's like going from Los Angeles to Beijing in just a few decades. But this wasn't just about armies, it was about ideas. As Islam spread, it absorbed knowledge from Greek, Persian, Indian, and Roman civilizations. This fusion gave birth to a cultural superpower. Baghdad became the crown jewel. Founded in 762 CE by the Abbasid caliphs, it wasn't just a capital, it was the intellectual center of the world. The House of Wisdom, a massive library and research institution, attracted scholars from across the globe. They translated works from ancient Greece, developed new fields like algebra and optics, and preserved knowledge that would later spark the European Renaissance. Think about that for a second. While kings in Europe were burning books, scholars in Baghdad were building telescopes. But it wasn't just Baghdad. Cities like Cairo, Cordoba, and Samarkand were thriving with innovation. Cordoba in Muslim Spain had streetlights and running water at a time when London was still knee-deep in mud. The Islamic world was setting the pace. Meanwhile, Islamic architecture flourished. Domes, minarets, mosaics, not just buildings but statements, symbols of a civilization that valued both the divine and the worldly. But power invites conflict. Internal. Divisions within the Islamic world began to take shape. The Sunni-Shia split became more pronounced. The Abbasids, once powerful, began to lose grip, and regional dynasties rose. The Fatimids in Egypt, the Umayyads in Spain, and the Seljuks in Persia all claimed their own authority. And then came the Crusades. In 1095, European Christian forces launched military campaigns to reclaim Jerusalem and the Holy Land from Muslim control. It was brutal. Cities were destroyed and thousands were killed. But the Islamic world wasn't passive. Leaders like Salah ad-Din, known in the West as Saladin, unified Muslims and pushed back the Crusaders. He retook Jerusalem in 1187, not with vengeance but with mercy, allowing Christians to leave peacefully, unlike the Crusaders who had slaughtered civilians. This wasn't just a religious war, it was a clash of civilizations. Despite the violence, there was also an unexpected exchange. Medicine, science, and philosophy flowed back into Europe through the Crusaders' contact with the Islamic world. But just as the Islamic world regained its footing, a new storm approached from the east, the Mongols. In 1258, Baghdad fell. The Mongol siege was one of the most devastating events in Islamic history. The Tigris River was said to have run black with ink from all the books thrown into it, and red from the blood of scholars. This could have been the end, but it wasn't. Within a generation, many Mongols converted to Islam. The religion didn't just survive, it adapted. New centers of power emerged: the Mamluks in Egypt, the Delhi Sultanate in India, and eventually, the Ottomans. The Ottoman Empire began as a small Turkish principality in the late 13th century, but soon grew into one of the most powerful empires in history. In 1453, they did something no one thought was possible. They captured Constantinople, the great Christian city, and renamed it Istanbul. It became the beating heart of a new Islamic empire. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottomans reached their peak. Law, architecture, and military power all flourished. But they weren't alone. To the east, the Safavid Empire in Persia promoted Shia Islam and created an entirely new Persian identity. And even further east, the Mughal Empire ruled much of India, blending Islamic, Hindu, and Persian culture in ways the world had never seen before. You've probably seen the Taj Mahal. That's Mughal architecture. That's Islamic influence. Still standing. Still stunning. For centuries, the Islamic world dominated trade routes. Spices, silk, ideas. They all flowed through Muslim lands. And with trade came more than just money. It brought a connection, cultural fusion, global influence. But then came Europe's rise. The age of exploration meant Europeans could bypass the Middle East by sea. Colonization began, and with it, Islamic power started to decline. By the 18th and 19th centuries, much of the Islamic world was under European control. The Ottomans were called the sick man of Europe. Mughal India fell to the British. The once dominant Islamic world became divided and colonized. But the story didn't end there. The 20th century saw independence movements rise. The Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War I, and new nations were born. Today, over 1.9 billion people identify as Muslim. Islamic art, science, and thought still shape the world. So here's what we're left with. 1,000 years of history that can't be erased. A civilization that led the world in medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy. A world that experienced both immense glory and painful loss. And here's the real kicker: most of us barely hear about it. History classes skip it. Movies ignore it. But the truth is, without the Islamic world, the modern world wouldn't exist. So, next time you look at a hospital, a telescope, or even your morning cup of coffee, remember where it came from. Watch the next video to keep going deeper.